The snow was falling in thick, silent sheets as Mark and Jenna strolled hand in hand through the antique district downtown. The scent of roasting chestnuts mingled with the sharp chill of winter air. It was their annual tradition to find a Christmas tree together, and this year, Jenna insisted they try something different. "Let's look at that antique shop," she said, tugging Mark toward a small, dimly lit store nestled between a closed bakery and a pawn shop. The faded sign above the door read, "Timeless Treasures." The shop's window display twinkled with golden lights, and at the center stood a magnificent tree, towering and regal. "Isn't it perfect?" Jenna whispered, her breath fogging the glass. Mark shrugged. "It's a bit old-fashioned." Jenna's excitement was contagious, so he followed her inside. The bell above the door tinkled softly as they entered. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with a thin, spectral frame, emerged from the shadows. His pale eyes gleamed as Jenna pointed to the tree. "That one," she said, her voice almost reverent. The shopkeeper hesitated. "It's a unique piece," he said slowly. "Handmade ornaments, one-of-a-kind craftsmanship. But it's not cheap." Jenna was undeterred. "We'll take it." As the shopkeeper wrapped the ornaments in tissue paper, his hands trembled slightly. "Take care with this tree," he murmured, almost as if to himself. "It's been known to linger." Mark frowned but said nothing. They loaded the tree into their car and drove home, laughing as snow piled on the windshield. By the time they set it up in the living room, the day had turned to evening. The ornaments, each intricate and unique, shimmered in the soft glow of their fireplace. At first, everything seemed normal. Jenna spent hours arranging the decorations, claiming she wanted the tree to look just right. Mark teased her for being obsessive, but she laughed it off, her cheeks flushed with joy. But as the days passed, Mark noticed changes in her behavior. She began waking up in the middle of the night, padding down the hallway in her slippers to sit by the tree. Mark would find her there in the morning, staring at it with glassy eyes. "It's beautiful," she whispered one morning when he found her. "But something's missing. I need to fix it." She started redecorating the tree constantly, removing ornaments and replacing them, sometimes in the same spot. Mark watched as her movements grew more frantic, her hands trembling as she adjusted garlands and baubles. Her once bright eyes now seemed dull, her complexion pale. "Jenna, this isn't healthy," Mark said one evening. "It's just a tree." She turned to him with a look he didn't recognize. "You don't understand," she said. "It has to be perfect. It needs me." One night, Mark woke to an empty bed. He found Jenna sitting cross-legged in front of the tree, her face illuminated by its eerie glow. The ornaments shimmered unnaturally, as if they were alive. He crouched beside her, touching her shoulder. "Come to bed," he pleaded. She turned to him, her eyes filled with tears. "They're watching," she said hoarsely. Mark's stomach nodded. "Who's watching?" Jenna pointed to the ornaments. "Them. They're all trapped. Can't you hear them?" He shook his head. But now that she'd said it, the ornaments seemed different. The faces painted on them were unnervingly detailed, their expressions frozen in what looked like anguish. One ornament in particular caught his eye, a woman with flowing hair and hollow, staring eyes. "Jenna, you need rest. Tomorrow, we'll take the tree back." She jerked away from him. "No, it stays. They need me." The next morning, Jenna was worse. She refused to eat or drink, spending every waking moment with the tree. Mark, desperate, tried to dismantle it while she slept, but the ornaments burned his hands when he touched them. He staggered back, his palms blistered, and the tree seemed to mock him, its lights flickering like laughter. Jenna grew weaker, her skin translucent, her voice faint. She began speaking to the ornaments as if they were old friends. Mark begged her to leave the house, to see a doctor, but she refused. "I belong here," she said one night, her voice barely audible. "It's almost finished." "What's finished?" Mark demanded. She smiled, a distant, eerie smile. "My place on the tree." On Christmas Eve, Mark woke to a bone-chilling silence. The house felt emptier, colder. He rushed to the living room and found Jenna standing in front of the tree, her back to him. "Jenna," he whispered, approaching cautiously. "Please, step away." She didn't respond. As he reached for her shoulder, she turned slowly, her face serene but lifeless. Her skin shimmered faintly, as if coated in frost. "It's time," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. Before Mark could react, she placed her hand on the tree. A blinding light filled the room, and Mark shielded his eyes. When he looked again, Jenna was gone. The tree stood as it had before, but now there was a new ornament hanging among the others. A tiny glass figure of a woman with flowing hair, her expression serene but hauntingly empty. Mark's knees buckled, and he let out a strangled cry. He reached for the ornament, but the same burning pain seared his hands, forcing him back. The tree's lights flickered, and for the first time, Mark heard it, a faint, sorrowful whisper emanating from the ornaments. On Christmas morning, the tree was gone. The living room was bare, save for a faint scorch mark on the floor where it had stood. Mark searched the house, then the antique shop, but timeless treasures had vanished, as if it had never existed. Each year after that, Mark refused to celebrate Christmas, but no matter where he went, he couldn't escape the feeling of being watched. And every now and then, in the quiet hours of the night, he swore he could hear Jenna's voice, faint and sorrowful, whispering his name.